Hello and welcome to the Riverfront Reds Show, where we will spend the next hour talking about Ohio high school playoff football. I got you. Skylar Wuebker joining me. I am Seth Shaner. Great to have everybody along for this. I guess we call this still a postseason edition, not off season, even though the Reds are firmly in the off season. There's at least one more World Series game to go. If you've been staying up late with that, it's been very interesting, if not entertaining. Skylar, how you been?
No, I'm doing great. And every World Series game that goes by, I'm more and more angry that the Reds didn't sign Shohei Ohtani out of Japan.
Oh, sure, that was going to happen. I know Dick Williams put together a really great brochure. So no,
the rumors are that the Reds were the second place team in that sweepstakes against the Angels. But man, that guy's just incredible.
Well, we can cling to those rumors and hope they keep us warm all winter because it didn't happen, and it's just as valuable as if they didn't even try. So I guess we're there. And honestly, he probably would have already been a Dodger by now anyway. So, right? Yeah. So we could have enjoyed him and Joey Votto together for a while. That would have been fun.
That would have.
2018 to 2023, that would have been great. All right. So, obviously not a whole lot happening. You reminded me before we came on the air that, yes, Ian Jabot has been outrighted. And unless someone else takes him, he will be a full-time resident of Louisville, Kentucky. Not much there. I guess I haven't been on for a couple weeks. I thank you for kind of holding down the fort last week as we took a little bit of a break on the Riverfront Reds Show. Remember, 3 or 4 weeks ago when all the Cincinnati media ran to their ticker tapes and all the different things to get the word out that hey, Nick Kroll said that the entire staff is invited back, and I just laughed at that language. It wasn't that, hey, we've re-signed or we've retained Terry Francona and his entire staff. It's, hey, we invited them back, and then I felt like, we won't mention any names, I felt like some folks ran with that as if, well, they're all back. It is what it is. J.R. House, as you've reported already, has skipped off to Arizona, where I guess his full-time residence is. I don't know. He wasn't a Terry Francona guy coming in, so I don't know if there's something to read between the lines on there, Skylar, but certainly I took it as face value, right? When it's like, hey, they're invited back. That doesn't mean they're going to be back.
Yeah, it's weird that they phrased it like that, because there's some guys that you're like, oh, we definitely need, DJ back. We definitely need Kyle Cowgill back. We definitely need some of these guys that actually you see the output of. I would say J.R. House is not one of those guys that you really saw what he did for the team outside of third base coach. Kyle Cowgill, he does the outfield fly drills. He's the one that set the pitching machine at the highest setting or whatever to practice home run robberies, and we saw that pay dividends throughout the season. So it was weird that they said everybody's invited back. Maybe we're reading into it a lot. Maybe it's, hey, if guys have better opportunities, they're free to go chase them. Or it could just say, how we're reading it, if you want to be here for X dollars because we're not giving raises or anything, you're welcome to stay.
Yeah, listen, when he came to town, he arrived with David Bell, and we know how the David Bell era turned out, and I have my criticisms of certainly the leadership void I believe that took place during David Bell's reign of terror as Reds manager. But I will say, House came in and he helped the catchers out with a lot of things. And Kurt Casale was already here, but I'm trying to remember. I think he'd already worked with House before. I remember Kyle Farmer. He came in that year in the trade, the Homer Bailey, Matt Kemp, all that stuff. And then, of course, Tucker Barnhart was here. And then they brought along a young Tyler Stevenson. And House got a lot of credit. And listen, for every time somebody new comes on the scene and kind of gets highlighted as teaching the Reds players something new and innovative, it makes me wonder, why wasn't someone already doing this? Because that was the whole pitch framing thing. And I
Yeah.
mean, it basically came to light that even Tucker Barnhart, who was a very good catcher defensively, was doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And so I give House credit for that. And I think Tyler Stevenson leaned on him a lot, right? As he became a better defensive catcher. But again, these are guys you should be able to replace with another qualified guy. Like it blows my mind. Like, I listen to certain college football podcasts, and there's a guy out there that talks about Doug Maurice. He talks about how almost every assistant coach should be replaceable. And it's like, if you're in Ohio State and you lose a guy to another job because he got like a coordinator took a head coaching job, or they let Jim Knowles walk for an extra $75,000 or whatever. Like at that point, his theory is you're Ohio State, you should be able to hire somebody. Well, if you're a Major League Baseball team, you're one of only 30. You
Yeah.
should be able to find, especially with the network of guys that Terry Francona has, you should be able to find the next guy who's as good and hopefully better.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those competitive jobs. And I would say, yes, like that's how a front office and a team should be ran. But
How it should be run. Yes.
right. But we've seen this franchise not follow the way things should go. But if you're like, I don't know, Tampa Bay, like they're able to just churn out everybody. The Reds aren't Tampa Bay. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's a big hit in what it means for the team or what we'll get from the team. And like you said, Terry Francona's got a wide network. He's been in this game forever, so I'm sure he's got a good qualified candidate ready to go. But I don't know. I would not put the Reds in the everybody's replaceable category, because we've seen this team try that, and I mean that's when we got the Price era and like
That's true.
a lot of different guys not welcomed back, I should say.
Well, I agree with you, but on the other hand, I'm not saying a manager. I'm not saying every manager is at the same level, but I think there's got to be an up and coming guy that wants to learn under Terry Francona. I guess that's where I
Oh
would be.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
That
that.
list has to be long.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah. So, and listen, a third base coach, he did more than that. He, like I said, he helped the catchers out a lot, but a third base coach is kind of like an offensive lineman. You really only notice him when he screws up.
Yeah.
And there was a few of those times over the last couple of years, especially the last year under David Bell, where hey, we're aggressive to a fault, and that seemed a little bit out in front of their skis, in my opinion. Beyond that, I guess there's not a whole lot of Reds news. Aside from seeing Jeff Hoffman close out games and wondering. Actually, I did a bit of a dive on Jeff Hoffman. I remembered him as being very inept as a Red, but in actuality, he put up some more. He put up some numbers that very, very respectable, actually, when he was with the Reds. And it's kind of surprised me looking back on it. I assume, did you remember Jeff Hoffman in a similar way, that like he kind of was not a bum, but that he didn't do as well for the Reds?
He
I
wasn't
guess
doing this.
no, he wasn't the closer, and he wasn't doing this. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. One thing I did see on the JR House front, like Kirk Casale is with the organization. Do they hire him on the staff? Maybe you move Cal Gill to third base coach, and I don't know. We'll see. If you would have told me 5 years ago that Kirk Casale was on the manager track, I would have believed you. So it makes sense. I'm trying to pull up. So yeah, Jeff Hoffman has a career 4.0 WAR. And I'm doing this on my phone and I'm getting ads. I should have left it up earlier. But yeah, no, I was surprised how good Jeff Hoffman. Luke Weaver, certainly with the Yankees, this year kind of showed to be a little more like what we would have expected.
Kevin
Um,
Gosman.
oh yeah, well he was such a short. In fact, I give the Reds credit for putting him back in the rotation. Like he had kind of fallen out of favor in some of his other stops as far as being a rotation guy. And the Reds, only had him for that brief moment, and he did a good job for them. I thought that's one I don't lament that much. They were never going to pay him that much, and I
Yeah.
guess if you ask me am I surprised that he has done this well for this long? Right? I would have told you he'd been out of the league by now, probably
Yeah,
after he left the Reds.
because he
So no,
came to the Reds from a waiver claim. So
yeah, exactly.
they didn't trade for him or anything. They said, "Hey, we'll take a flyer on you," and I would say the first stop in the rebuild of Kevin Gosman.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thought there. And how many times did we see it where like Kyle Loesch wasn't that good for the Reds, but he was really good for the Cardinals because they had the good pitching coach, and the Reds just really didn't have that. So Jeff Hoffman has a career B WAR of 4, I believe, and I was surprised to learn that in 2021 his B WAR for the Reds was actually 0.9. So almost a quarter of his B WAR came in that season with the Reds. He was 0.6 in 22. Now he was an all-star in Philadelphia in 24. That's when I first had this slap my forehead moment of, oh my goodness, this guy, but no, good for them. Good for the ability to possibly, and hey, David Bell, he's on, he's within the front office, I guess, with the Blue Jays. So
Yeah,
year after,
VP of President Operations, and I think he's a good candidate of like probably not a great managerial candidate, but a great front office representative and great front office mind.
when
Um,
he was in the Giants front office when the Reds hired him. He was like a
yep.
roving guy, and so yeah, maybe so, maybe so. I mean, that's what's weird about baseball, though. Like they will bring a guy from some backfield in the minor leagues and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you be our manager now? Like it's interesting to me. Baseball's done, and of course, the Giants come under fire for hiring a guy out of college, which really isn't done. But I don't think it's any more out of left field, pardon the pun, than almost any other hire. Like
Yeah.
unless you're hiring Terry Francona, who's done it many many times. I mean, the Astros hired Larry Dierker out of the broadcast booth, and he went on to win division titles. So uh, whatever. I just feel like guys come down into the dugout, and the funniest thing with baseball, Skylar, is they actually have to put on a uniform. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so different than other sports. So here you are wearing a polo and khakis every day to work, and all of a sudden you got to wear a baseball uniform.
Yeah, I mean it's there's a lot of managerial jobs opened up this year. A lot of good ones. I mean, Bruce Bochy, San Diego, the Cardinals are sticking with there. But there's a lot of good jobs out there, and I'm glad that the Reds aren't in that market where they're competing to get a good managerial candidate. It's nice to have a Hall of Famer manager now and not have
Yeah,
to be in that kind of market because the Reds are going to get outspent in whatever those other teams pay their
they
next
are.
manager.
And listen, as Bengals fans and as Reds fans, we're taking it on the chin pretty regularly these last several years. Um, I find myself like, well, the Bengals never do this. They never go out and make that free agent signing, or they never trade, which is pretty much true. But if all the times you say the Bengals never ... well, they did sign Joe Burrow, they did
Hmm.
sign Chase, they did sign Higgins, they did go ahead and add Noah Fant on at the end of training camp, and that has proved to be a good thing. Well, the Reds never ... Well, they did hire Terry Francona. And I suppose some people would say, well, wait a minute, he was sitting on a couch in Arizona, and it wasn't as if other teams were banging down his door. I think other teams would have had they thought he was available.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And
so
I guess that's the other thing is that when the Reds hired Terry Francona, there weren't like a ton of manager jobs open in last year. Um, where this year there's a lot of managerial turnover, so the market is a little more frisky, I would say.
well, that's an interesting point you bring up because the Reds fired David Bell just like a week and a half, 2 weeks before the season ended, and
Yeah,
it was like very curious. And we're seeing this in college football as well, where all these teams are kind of trying to line up, who's going to be the next guy. But the fact in like college football is like, let's just say Lane Kiffin, for example, if Florida or LSU try to go after Lane Kiffin, they could be waiting until like early to mid January,
yeah,
depending on how well Ole Miss does in the playoff. So did it really help you, or you force yourself to hire somebody too early? Well, in the case of Terry Francona was home on his couch 1 year into retirement, and the Reds kind of went out and took their swing and they got him. But again, if you're trying, like if they were trying to hire like Dave Roberts' top assistant, right,
Yeah.
last year, they weren't getting him until early to mid-November at the earliest anyway.
Yeah.
So like firing David Bell a week early didn't really make as much sense unless you do what they did.
Right.
So that's all interesting. Like I always hear that, and it's like, oh, I heard somebody today say Penn State's trying to hire someone by late November. And it's like, really? Because even if you hire an assistant coach, like let's say Ohio State's Brian Hartline, he's not. I mean, I suppose he might under the table commit to coming to you, but he's not coming until mid to late January if all
Right.
goes well for Ohio State again. So this is all very fascinating to me, like the timing of when you fire someone and then try to hire your next guy.
Thankfully, the Reds fired nobody.
That's right. That's right. And J.R. House was invited to return, but he chose not to. All right, let's shift gears. And I put out a topic on viewer mail. We'll get to those in just a moment. But I wanted yours. I'll give you a few of mine. Last time I hosted a show, we talked about favorite 2025 Reds, and we got some good responses there. Frankly, the viewer mail kind of surprised me because I'm all prepared to talk about like Eric Davis and Joey Votto and all this, and I got some interesting responses on viewer mail. But I wanted to just think back. What made you a fan of the Reds sometimes is because you picked out a player and you decided to cheer for him. So, Skylar, I'm fine if we do more than one because in my old age, I've picked up more and more guys who I consider my favorite player. So tell me, like, you go first. We'll go back and forth. If you have more than one, that's fine too. Who is your first favorite player, and like, what are some memories of what he was doing on the field and that sort of thing?
So I would say I'm born into my Reds fandom.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in my family's a Reds fan. And so it was just kind of like, tough luck, kid. You're a Reds fan. Kind of like what I'm doing with my son now. So the first favorite player, it's Eric Davis. I mean, what he was doing and what he was able to do, and just rewatching highlights gets me like so excited. Now he didn't really stay with the team through like my
Right.
fandom, the injuries and the colon cancer, and kind of bounced around. So I it's like I'd have to go back and watch Eric Davis play.
Sure.
But then like it got like really re-energized when Griffey came. I mean, that the emotion and excitement and just heritage that all the whole storyline like all tied it together. And that 99 team was fantastic. So to have that team and bring Ben Griffey, I mean, we all thought we were going to the World Series.
Yes. Yeah. No, so Eric Davis was mine as well. I've heard you say that before about him being your first favorite player. I'm a little impressed because you're quite a bit younger than I am. So my thing was, and I was prepared to tell this, like, I'm often impressed, and even if you were to open a Bible and look at that, like, there's times in the Bible where words spread quickly, despite the fact they didn't have cell phones, internet, cable, any of the stuff. There were times, I think, in this country's history where it amazes me how quickly news spread. I mean, the War of 1812, I guess, had a battle after it was technically over, but let's not get into that. But like, for me, I consider my fanhood of the Reds as rudimentary as possible, given the time I have been alive. I'm a Reds fan turning, 7 and 8 years old in 1986 and 1987, and I am just goo goo gaga over Eric Davis. And to think that that's possible when where I live 3+ hours away from Riverfront Stadium, we did not have cable TV. I did not get a daily newspaper. I began a love affair with baseball cards at that time. So some of what I was like glomming onto was basically reading the back of baseball cards over and over. But we did get we had a local station out of Columbus that we got over the air that would Fox 28 would air some of the Reds games. That basically a lot of the games that Channel 5 in Cincinnati was airing. So we would get those. And so once a week maybe I could watch Eric Davis play. But there's no high definition. There were no big screen TVs. But it was as if I was watching Eric Davis in HD before I even knew what HD was. Like anything he did, I picked up on. Slapping the thigh on catching the fly ball. Like I batted left-handed, and thank goodness, as far as my coach was concerned, I didn't try the whole, hands down at the waist thing. I would have failed miserably if I did, because not many people could. It's just a reflex thing.
Even
But
if
I'm
you're
telling
right-handed, that sucked.
No, I mean it doesn't matter left or right. I did like looking in the mirror. I did the whole stand up straight, start like. But I never did. I never brought it out to the field as far as my little league days goes. But no, I am amazed that again I had TV. I had the sporting news that came weekly. I had these things, and that helped way more than years and years earlier. But what I really had was Marty Brenneman's voice.
Yeah.
And but I mean, and listen, we celebrated recently the 25th anniversary of his game 1 home run. That was all over social media the day that, a week or two ago that occurred 25 years ago. You cannot, like, by that point I was already a huge Eric Davis fan. But if you said he had to move on, they traded him after the 91 season.
Mm-hmm.
So in the little kid's life, from 1987, let's say, when I really, jumped on that bandwagon of being an Eric Davis fan, from 87 to 91 felt like a very long time. As we look back on it now, it's not. And I wish Eric would have been able to go through some of his things in a quote unquote safe place in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But with Marge Schott, the way she treated people and all that, like, he had to go through a lot of what he went through elsewhere. Now he relaunched his career in 96 when he came back to Cincinnati, because he didn't play in 95. He actually broke a bone in his neck running into a wall playing for the Tigers, where he was only hitting like 194 in 94, and it looked like his career might be over. He signs back with the Reds, has a great season in 96 alongside of Barry Larkin's good season, like Larkin coming off MVP. But Larkin actually hit 36 home runs in 96. They were together again. Chris Sabo was actually back on that team. It felt like my whole younger child was back. And then Eric Davis obviously had really good seasons in Baltimore. And the crazy thing in Baltimore was he wasn't just trying to hit home runs. So he actually hit like 324, and like you saw some of that stuff that you didn't see before. But that 1990 home run in the World Series is basically the exclamation point, right, of my childhood. And that was just amazing. And I agree with you a little bit on Griffey, although I never put him in favorite player status. I kind of had, like, Sean Casey was kind of my favorite Red during that era. And that was special in its own right, because, like, he was such a great guy. Like, I don't know if you ever got to. I met Sean Casey one time.
Oh, fun.
I don't know if I've told that story. Like, Sean Casey gets traded to the Reds night before opening day 1998, right? We just shipped off our opening day starter. How could it be any more bleak than trading your opening day starter, and now Mike Rimlinger is going to be starting on opening day? And it's not like Dave Burbo was Pedro Martinez. I get that, but he's gone. We have no hope. And then Sean Casey breaks the orbital bone in his face because Damian Jackson during batting practice threw a ball and hit him. We're cursed. We just felt like terrible. Well, Casey had a decent year in 98, technically I think his rookie season, and he came on the Caravan. And I was a college freshman, and my grandfather had taken a picture of Sean Casey actually talking to me at the dugout in at Wrigley Field. And so my grandpa for Christmas gives me this blown up picture of Sean Casey standing there. And I read that he's going to be a part of the caravan, and he shows up at they were like I forget what the Rotary Club of Columbus, and they announced it as if it was open to the public. So I show up with my photo, and I'm ready to get this picture signed by Sean Casey. And they're like, "Well, this isn't really open to the public. You have to have somebody bring you as a guest." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know." And this guy standing there goes, "Hey, you can be my guest." So I get to go into it was like at a banquet hall in downtown Columbus. So I get to go in there, and I end up at a table, and Marty Brennan is the MC, and he passes the mic around, and he's like, "I want to hear exciting moments from this past season." And all of a sudden the mic comes into me, and I'm like, "Well, hey, uh, in Detroit, you guys played up there, and it's extra innings, and Sean Casey catches a ball over his head over by the tarp with a man on third, and everything about you with Sean Casey being the guy involved here on defense says he shouldn't have caught that. The guy's going to tag up because he's like 180 feet from home plate. Sean Casey is with his back to the plate, and he wheels around, he makes the throw, and they tag him out, and they win the game. And like Sean Casey gets the mic right after I remembered this favorite play of 1998, and Sean Casey's voice. "Oh, that was awesome, brother!" Like just so excited. So then after the thing, I take this picture out of its cardboard, like that I had it in, and he signs it for me, and then he walks with me down to the bus. And
That's
I remember
awesome.
it was surreal because remember Mark Lewis he had been with the Reds in '95 and hit the grand slam in the NLCS. It's one of only 7 grand slams in postseason, whatever. Well, so Mark Lewis had rejoined the Reds like the day before, and so he lives in Hamilton, Ohio. He joins the caravan after they'd already come up on the bus. So Mark Lewis has his Porsche parked behind the bus. So Mark's out there kind of hanging out. And Sean Casey and I are going down. He's like, "So you're in college?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at Ohio State." And Sean Casey goes, "What do you do about laundry, man?" And I'm like, "Well," I said, "it's funny because my mom lives about 25 minutes away. So I always just throw it in a bag and just take it to her." And he's like, "Oh, man, I went to Richmond, and it's like X hour drive from Pittsburgh where I grew up." And he's like, "But man, I would bring 3 bags full to my mom. Like I never did my own laundry ever. I don't even know how." And so like he's telling me his story, and Mark Lewis is standing there just shaking his head. And I don't know if they'd been teammates in the Indians organization because Lewis had played for both, but he's like, "Case, you're one of a kind, man." Like, and he's asking me all these questions, and no, it was just very memorable. So that was kind of like, "Yeah, man, you're my favorite player now." Like, boom, no, signed, sealed, delivered. Because I already felt that way about you, but of course, and then he had a great 1999 season. And really, I remember Jack McKeon said he's going to win multiple batting titles, which he never did. But no, that was it. And of course, Joey Votto. I mean, I assume.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of stories we could tell about him certainly are vast. So, no, but yeah, Sean Casey became my second favorite player after Eric Davis, and then I think with the experiences I had with my son and all that, like Joey Votto, I think is my favorite of all time.
Yeah.
Like there's how you felt as a kid. I get that. That's special. That's your like entry level into the game, right? Who's your favorite player? And like I remember a cousin of mine, she picked like Jeff Treadway. I'm like, "Wow, you bombed out on
Okay.
that one." He was good for a week. But Eric Davis certainly has that special place in my heart. But I think overall, with the experiences I had with my son, and then also just being mesmerized by the things that Joey Votto could do, like the number of times you mentioned it, the number of times Joey Votto said, "You know what I'm going to do this year? I'm never going to strike out, like hardly at all." And then that one year he strikes out so few times compared to anybody else. Or you know what I'm going to do? That one year he wanted to he said he wanted to have a 500 on base, and he didn't get there, but but man, he came close. And I think there was at least, was it 2017? He hit over 400 after the All-Star break.
Yep.
It's just incredible. So what's your favorite Joey Votto memory? Do you have one or that
Oh,
comes to mind? Or
man. I mean, I love the 2010 MVP season.
Mhm.
Um, I really loved his 2017 season. I
Oh
know he
yeah,
got absolutely robbed of,
criminal.
of the his second MVP to Giancarlo Stanton, but his 2017 season was just incredible to me. I mean, I have it pulled up here: 36 home runs, 134 walks, 20 intentional walks, an on base of 454,
Mhm.
an OPS of 1032, an OPS plus of 167. I mean, everything he did that season was absolutely incredible. And I will always remember that season for sure. Um, and even in the later bits of the career, like obviously maybe some recent memories and recent bias in this, but like the 2020 season when he finally gets back into a postseason appearance, granted the shortened code year or anything, but just how much confidence he had in the team and the pitching staff and everything that we had going on. Like we're dangerous and nobody wants to face us. And I just love the exuberance that he brought to this team.
I agree, and certainly the home run streak he had, that was
Mm.
huge, especially at Wrigley, because he would taunt the Wrigley fans all the time, and so that was fun. Um, I want to give a shout out to my younger son. He decided at a very, very young age that Eugenio Suarez was his favorite player,
Nice.
and there would be it didn't matter if he would play upstairs. I'm in my home office, but our family room's right next door here. He would be upstairs playing in his bedroom, and Suarez had hit a home run, and I would yell, "Hey, Eugenio!" like really loud, and then you'd hear Suarez, like kind of a little 4-year-old's voice. He he loved Suarez so much that we've tried to get him to like a new Reds player as his favorite player, and he won't do it. And he says, "No, Suarez is my favorite." And now, like this year with the Mariners making that run, um, we would have a game on, and of course, he doesn't care about that, but we would yell Suarez's name if he did something good, and hey, Eugenio, and then he would yell Suarez no matter what he was doing. He would look up momentarily from his Minecraft or whatever. So,
That's how my
uh,
son is with Ellie. Every time we watch a game, he knows who Ellie is. He knows when Ellie's up to play. He'll stop what he's doing to watch Ellie.
yeah,
And so that I think that's how
but
you
that
mentioned Votto and your son and just kind of becoming that in that time of your life. I think that's where Ellie is in our household.
I mean but that's what we're talking about with Eric Davis too. Like that was
Mhm.
how we that was our like if there's like an entryway into being a fan. Like imagine being brought up when like Adam Duvall was the best player on the team. Like it just, and I know Votto played, but like 2018 for whatever reason I feel like Votto didn't. I don't know, whatever it was, but like if you again, like I mentioned Jeff Treadway, like it's like if you choose wrong or if the Reds just aren't that good with any stars at the time, then it would be tough. And well, in fact, in 2023, my older son was such a diehard fan up until that point, but he was bored of the Reds because Votto was hurt
Yeah.
and they started out so terribly in April, and it just wasn't exciting. And at the time, my son was 12 and a half years old, and he's like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm not having fun watching the Reds anymore." And he didn't watch for a while, and then McLean comes up, and then Ellie comes up, and then all of a sudden, he's wearing a Viking helmet. My son is so like it's just like that came at the right time. All right, hey, let's dive into um, some viewer mail. Again, I've been putting out the questions as far as like, hey, I want to hear from this topic. Like, I'll put out the show topic kind of, and people will respond to that. I do kind of wonder if maybe some week I'll just say, hey, I'm not giving you a topic, just go wild, and we'll see what happens. But we got actual letters from actual viewers, Skylar. So let's go over that a little bit here. Joey Gaditza, our friend from Canada, he chimed in first. He said, lots of Reds over the years I've enjoyed. One guy who was in our laundry briefly, but made his mark in the Reds uni was Shin-Soo Choo. Man, he was fun. I could easily go back further too, but 12 years ago seems so long ago already. Cheers, gang. Cheers to you, Joey. Yeah, that year with Chu and Votto together. I
That was
mean,
awesome.
sadly, though, for me, I remember the last month of that season. Remember how the Reds were in first place? They weren't going to have to deal with that one game playoff that they had back then. And then they just wilted down the stretch under Dusty Baker. And of course, lost that one game playoff at Pittsburgh. So the season as a whole is remembered very negatively. But man, overall, having Chu and Votto together for a whole season, that was something else.
Yeah, that was so fun. And I anytime they like did something like getting Chew, like it reinvigorated or like reinforced the fandom. And especially in that 12, 13 range where they were really dominating the division. That was really, really fun to watch.
Well, and remember that was speculation that they would just give center field to Billy Hamilton, but
Hmm.
it really was a year early. And
Mm.
so they could have stuck with Drew Stubbs one more year. But they went out and got creative. And listen, Walt Jocketty didn't do a good job of keeping the farm system stocked. Their drafts were pretty pitiful in the 4 or 5 years that he was a GM. And then he had traded off several guys, right? When they, especially in the Matt Latos deal,
Yeah.
with Grandal and Yonder Alonso, which hey, it made sense at the time. Like it was exactly what they needed, and they had catching and they had Votto at first. So it didn't kill them to do that in the moment, but certainly 4 or 5 years later, it was like, I would like to have Grandal. He's an all-star now. But no, so what he lacked in building up the farm system, Jocketty was good at like identifying a spot like a Scott Rowland leadership void or like you said, like Sin Chu Chu, like the name of the game was getting on base, and my goodness, he and Votto at the top of that order did it better than anybody. So it was fun. Like I wish I could expel September and that one game in Pittsburgh from my memory, so that I could more fondly remember 2013. Right? All right. Sid Price says, now, again, I told you before we came on air, I was a little surprised at some of these. Like I went with like Eric Davis
Yeah.
and here we are. Sid Price says Sean Doolittle was barely a Red, but the only one I was ever on a first name basis with. So that one's important. I mentioned Sean Casey, great player for the Reds. Obviously, Sean was, but my one-on-one encounters with him, two of them, really went a long way. And here you have Sid getting to know Sean Doolittle, which I follow, like I've mentioned before, like Tony Kornheiser, and he follows the Washington Nationals. And so Doolittle was big in the community in DC when he was there. And as Sid says, very, very big kind of presence outside of the stadium, right? Sean Doolittle.
Yes. Yeah. He was very ingrained and involved in the community, very out in public. Like you could run into Sean Doolittle anywhere.
Yeah, go to a
Um,
record shop or go
Coffee
somewhere where
shop.
you're looking to get some coffee. Yeah, no doubt. That's how that was. Um, James Urban chimes in, and again, this one's interesting because it was a flicker, right? He says Aristides Aquino, one of the greatest months ever. Ha ha. I won't forget. Plenty of others too, but that's the one that came to mind for some reason. Listen, 17 home runs in his first month in the big leagues. And you
Crazy.
and it's not often you can like have a line of delineation of like boom August 1st, but that's how it is because they traded Puig on July 31st,
Hmm.
and then Aquino, and honestly, if you combine Puig and Aquino's numbers that year, you're in best Reds of our lifetime territory. Like for like um for like personality, with Puig
Yeah.
getting in fights and doing all the stuff Puig did, and then also for production. Like you combine those things, and it would have been, you couldn't put them both in the same body certainly, but it was the same position, right? Like right field, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Aquino was one of those guys that like, oh, we thought he's here, he's going to be the next guy, and I mean, because he had a cannon of an arm, he could hit the ball 1,000 feet. I mean, he was awesome, but man, he just couldn't make any adjustments to the plate. Once the league caught up to him or got tape on him, he could not bounce back.
That is absolutely true. Hey, Kyle Kapler comes in. He answers that, but he also comes up with another one. Let's go with the player. He said TJ Antone carrying the bullpen during that 2021 season. I'm right there with you. Yeah, and again, TJ has had all these different like rebirths. He certainly was exciting, and the story. I mean, baseball more than I think most sports, right? Like there's a storyline involved. Like I know, like in college football, Tom Rinaldi's telling you a sappy story every week, but really overall, baseball, the story of these guys, like TJ Antone, obviously overcoming all the Tommy John surgeries he's had, but even that first like flight into the big leagues, he bought into Driveline, he bought into what Derek Johnson was teaching, and all of a sudden he gets like that 10-mile-an-hour raise in his fastball, and he was utterly dominant for that brief time.
Yeah, he was super dominant, and like you said, he was the first. I would say the first pitcher outside of Trevor Bauer who just has this Trevor Bauer about him, but he was the first guy outside of Trevor Bauer that was really big in the drive line, the pitching analytics, the all of the like crazy work pregame workouts and stuff like that. So you kind of got the benefits without the arrogance, I would say. And that was really fun to see and watch. And unfortunate that the just repeated Tommy John and Tommy John and Tommy John. He looks like he's making his way back. We'll see how well he can produce in here. I mean, 3 Tommy Johns is rough, but
Yeah. I don't see it happening. I'm sorry. I hope he gets back, but honestly, getting back to the big leagues at all would be like you should make a movie about this guy. Like
yeah.
it's not about can he be like a 35 save a year guy or something like that. Like it's literally about can he get back to the big leagues. Kyle's question that goes aside, and I'm very happy Kyle came in with this question. I want more like this. He says, "What's the most realistic avenue to improve the team, the Reds, obviously?" He says, "Like, what do you see them doing, not what you want or think they should do." That's the problem. I mean, let's be honest. The thing they need at minimum is one uber power bat. Like
Hmm.
not just even 20 home runs. They need the guy. They need Kyle Schwarber. They need Pete Alonso. They need somebody who's going to mash to complement. Because remember your show the other night, you had all those guys, Eric Davis, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench,
Yep.
like Joey Votto, like all these guys. And I'm telling you, man, that's the sad thing. We are like, oh, the poor Reds, they don't ever spin, they don't ever do this. But the team this past year was a playoff team, a winning team.
Yeah.
I submit, as much as I think they had 3 to 5 holes that they needed to fill, any one of those guys you talked about Sunday night would have made this team exciting, which we've talked about. Why wasn't this team fun? They had a winning record. They made the playoffs. And B, better. Like 90 wins is in reach with Kyle Schwarber this year for what he brings on and off the field.
Yeah.
And that's what they have to do.
Yeah. And in addition to what the guys that listed on our show on Sunday, in addition to what they did on the field, they were bona fide clubhouse leaders. I mean, every single one of those guys were boisterous in the clubhouse, and I don't think they have that.
No.
Um, they definitely don't have that now, and quite frankly, I don't know how much of that was Joey Votto in the time. He was never like the big boisterous clubhouse leader guy. Um, mainly because when he came into the league, it was Barry Larkin, it was Griffey, it was a lot of different guys in that boisterous spot. So to have like imagine what a Kyle Schwarber does just on the field. You get the home runs, you get the left field, kind of a left field glove, but you get the home runs, you get the excitement at the plate. But what he does off the field, I mean, he's a clubhouse leader guy. Everywhere he goes, the team rallies around him. They did it in Chicago. They did it in Washington. They're doing it in Philly. They rally around Kyle Schwarber more than they rally around Castellanos or Bryce Harper or anybody like that. They rally around Schwarber.
I mentioned that before. Buster Olney told Tony Kornheiser on his show that this is back in like June or July. He's like, hey, Kyle Schwarber could just end up in Cincinnati because he wants to go home. And that idea that I'm telling you, you're on a team. Bryce Harper's an alpha. Okay. Trey Turner is kind of a leader type by example. Nick Castellanos didn't produce this year, but he's very vocal. All right. And to tell me that that they have that idea that, listen, this guy is the leader. So that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, though, Kyle, as we move along, I still don't. I think you're going to get Austin Hayes 2.0. I'm sorry. Somebody.
I mean,
somebody
I'd be all right with like a Miguel Andujar, like a full season Miguel Andujar, and then get somebody in left field that can get you 20 home runs, 25
Give me
home runs.
Andujar and Schwarber, though.
That would be great.
All right, real quick. Rex Scott says, without question, my favorite all-time Red is Davey Concepcion. Growing up during the year, boy, we respect and admire you, Rex, for just being old enough to enjoy that. He says, growing up during the Big Red Machine, he always impressed me as steady, not flashy, but dependable, and he was a clutch player at the plate and an outstanding shortstop. Bench, Morgan, and Rose got all the attention, but Davey was the mainstay. And that's huge because sometimes your favorite guy is the glue guy or, like Pokey Reese for me in 1999. I loved Sean Casey, as I've mentioned. I bought a Pokey Reese jersey because Pokey just had that year where, and there's been guys like that throughout time where it's not the best player, but he's your favorite player. Like Ohio State football players, for me, I have my favorites over the years, and they're not always simply the best player. Like Chris Olave became really good, but I loved him even when he was more of a role receiver guy. All right.
Yeah.
One more. One of my favorites was Sean Casey. This is Eric Market. Hey, thanks for chiming in, Eric. He was consistent and a great, fun personality to watch play. That's what I think is also missing real quick. I know. I'm sorry, folks. Skylar's got to go. He's got a meeting. So we're winding this down. I criticized over the years when I was younger the hokiness of how I felt about the George Grand broadcasts. And I like Sadak. But George Grand and Chris Welsh would tell you stories about these guys. We would learn about the players. We learned about Sean Casey taking Chris Rietsma to get a suit because somebody had taken Sean Casey to get a suit. We learn about Casey and the things he does off the field and how boisterous he was. And that's how you got to know guys. Through the radio and TV broadcasts, you got to know these guys. And I just don't think the Sadaks of the world have that relationship that George Grand would immerse himself into the clubhouse in a way that maybe they found annoying at times. I don't know. but he had the ability to be that fly on the wall for us, the fan.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the access piece of it. It could be like how much of those traditions have lived on or stuck around and how many of those things left when guys left. And I think that's a key piece in this team, not only just like the on-field piece, but having that boisterous guy that does the connections outside the clubhouse, does the traditions of buying rookies suits and like you don't really hear any of that go on around this clubhouse anymore.
Well, I guess that's maybe something to look into here as we go throughout the offseason. Maybe something to ponder. Are we just not hearing the stories anymore? Are the stories there to be told?
Right.
Or are these guys so closed off and we've mentioned it before. Ellie's a superstar, but it's almost like he hit superstardom so quickly that he had to kind of close himself off at a very, very, very young age. So I don't know if that's part of it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for chiming in. Skylar, you can bomb out of here if you have to. I've got to close up shop. It was a pleasure to sit down with you again, though. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Anytime, Seth.
All right. The Riverfront Reds Show. Thanks you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on the Riverfront's social media at Riverfront Cincy. Become a Patreon member. Okay. You can do that by signing up at patreon.com/riverfrontcincy and send me a message. Let me know, because if I don't get informed from Patreon that you're joined, I don't know to add you to the Slack channel. I'd love to add some more folks to that channel. We have a great time over there, kind of closing ourselves off from the trolls of the world on the internet, and having, it's almost just like our own text chat, a group chat. So go ahead and do that. And again, we thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the family here at the Riverfront. We will have Late Night Reds coming at you Sunday night. Tune into that in live real-time fashion so you can comment in the chat and let Ben and Skylar know what you're thinking. And then also Welcome to the Jungle is coming out weekly. I thank Owen and Caroline greatly for posting this week, because boy, that was painful against the Jets. All right. For Chad Dotson, for Adam Dunn, and Liza Alberto Bonilla, this is Seth Shaner saying, so long, everyone.